We got lots on the agenda today. We got the Phillies. We could talk the Eagles. We could talk anything. But something came up on my mind last night as I was doing another show as a guest appearance. Something Joel Embiid related, and there's a lot of layers to it. And I really want to get into it. And it's something that I've been thinking since I mentioned it last night. I haven't stopped thinking about it. And I really can't wait to get everybody else's opinion. It's Joel Embiid centric, not James Harden, not Tobias Harris. Trending in the AM and this very interesting topic. It starts in 30 seconds. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? Is it possible that you hear me right now? Give me a second here. It sounds like me. Yes. I don't know what happened to my soundboard there. I think my soundboard just died in the middle of the start of the show there. Give me 1 second, everybody. If anybody's watching right now, give me a thumbs up. Give me something that you can hear me right now. I am not sure what happened there. If anybody is watching, just give me a yes, I can hear you. I'd greatly appreciate that. Not sure what happened. Soundboard just went dead right in the middle of the startup there. Let me see here. Unmute this. Yeah, all right. Through on that other screen there. I don't know what just happened there. That is a great start to the morning right there. And welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Philadelphia Sports Network. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow. You know the works. Do it all. Shout it from the rooftops. Let me try to not lose my shit here as my whole entire system just crashed here. Don't know why the power just died on that, but it is what it is. Always good to have a backup idea and plan. No microphone in my hand then. I don't know what I'm going to do with no microphone to hold my hand still. I guess I'm just going to hold my coffee even more. Hopefully the audio is coming through well. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I can't hear myself, which I'm used to hearing my voice in my ears. So this is a little different, a little awkward here. But welcome to Trending the AM. We got lots on the agenda today. We could pretty much talk anything that you guys are interested in talking about, sports-wise, Phillies, Eagles, NBA Finals, whatever it may be. We can talk it. But I want to start the day off with some Sixers conversation. Make sure you're hitting the like button. Make sure you're hitting the subscribe button, the follow button, all that great stuff there. Shouted from the rooftops. Trending in the AM, the only show where your opinions actually matter. Sorry, I'm just still so thrown off by everything that just happened here. I don't know. Really pissed me off there. Just totally ruined the start of the day. I might need that $500 super chat drop there, you know? I might need to buy a new soundboard depending on what the hell just happened. Anyway, so last night, again, this is really weird. I'm going to hold my microphone still, even though I don't need it. It's not working, but I feel like obligated to hold my microphone. Doing a show last night, okay? Doing a show on Scotty Talks NBA. And my man Scotty Drowned, great show. Glad to be on it with him on DSM Media, my former network I was a part of. I went back there last night to help him with his NBA show and got to thinking. And, you know, we were talking about the Sixers offseason, and we were talking about, you know, James Harden and whatnot and what route the Sixers need to go. And it got me thinking of something. And like I said, we could talk Eagles and Jalen Hurts. We could talk other things. We could talk about, and we will talk about James Harden in a minute. But this is something that I brought up, and it might be out of line. It might be awful. I don't know. Who actually wants to play with Joel Embiid? And I'm asking you this because, in this day and age, in this world of super teams that are being built in the NBA, stars always gathering together and saying, I want to play with you. You want to play with me. Let's get this guy involved. You always see Kyrie and James or LeBron James wanting to pair together. You saw, LeBron James and what he always does, building these super teams. You hear Damian Lillard yesterday or 2 days ago talking about, I would like to play, man. Jalen Brunson would be a really good guy to play with. This guy would be a really good guy to play with. Basically putting it out there what stars he wants to play with. And this is what's constantly happening in the NBA. Super teams. And if you look at the NBA Finals right now, with the Heat and the Nuggets, they're not doing it the super team way. And I'm not saying I want a super team here. We've obviously already tried that with James Harden, and it hasn't worked. But my question is, in this age of super teams, in this age of players and athletes that run the league, that kind of force their way to play with certain teams, why don't we see stars say they want to play with Joel Embiid? If you think about it, Joel Embiid is buddy-buddy with a lot of guys around the NBA. Off the court, after games, we obviously saw it with Jason Tatum after the Game 7, them laughing and giggling together. There are a lot of people that are friendly with Joel Embiid. But has any NBA player actually stood up and said, I want to play with Joel Embiid? Maybe to an extent, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets, and him are really close from their time together. And they still, to an extent, they still to an extent, there's always that, would they like to play together? But Jimmy Butler hasn't begged Joel to come to Miami. Jimmy Butler hasn't said, I want to play with Joel. Joel hasn't demanded to play with Jimmy Butler. Joel Embiid hasn't demanded to be traded to him. So my question is, why is this the case? And I think there's multiple layers to it. There's multiple possible reasons. First and foremost, it brings up the question, we've already talked about this offseason already. The question that can you win an NBA title with a player of Joel Embiid's style, skill set, and level? Can you win in this NBA with a guy like Joel Embiid as your number one? And I think that's a very interesting thing first that you have to figure out. I'm just making up names. I'm not saying I want this guy. I'm not saying this is a rumor. Would a Jason Tatum want to play with Joel Embiid? Because their styles would clash, because it wouldn't work. Would a Devin Booker want to play with Joel Embiid? Would, a LeBron James? Would any of these elite players? Dame Lillard mentioned like 4 teams the other day. And we've always been linked with Dame Lillard and the Blazers to bring him here to Philly. Dame Lillard didn't mention Joel Embiid. Dame Lillard didn't mention the Sixers. So is there a scenario that the Stars don't want to come to Philly because they don't want to play with Joel Embiid's style? They're not discounting what Joel Embiid does. Just if Joel Embiid's the number one guy, it makes it very difficult for them to mesh. Maybe stars, guards, stars, scorers think that if they force their way to Philly, it'll affect their game because it won't play well with Joel. I think it's an interesting thing. And I think it's interesting that we keep bringing up the, can you even win with Joel Embiid being the number one? And it's one layer of this conversation. Layer 2 of this conversation, maybe no stars ever wanted to come here, but it was not because of Joel. It was because of other factors. Did nobody want to come here because of Doc Rivers? Did nobody want to come here because of James Harden? Did the other aspects of the Sixers team cause players not to want to come here, not want to force their way out of wherever they were to come pair with Joel Embiid? You would think, in the last couple of years before we ran out of assets, Josh Allen did get to cover a Madden. Thank God. Thank God. First guy on Madden from Buffalo in ages, but I'm just glad it's not Jalen Hurts. We don't need Jalen Hurts on the cover of Madden, ruining his season. Let Josh Allen's season get ruined. Just going to say, let the Madden cover jinx go to Buffalo. Joker did. I mean, you give Joker all the credit for last night's NBA Finals, but you got to give some to Jamal Murray too. Jamal Murray dropped the triple-double last night, too. Both of my main bets last night hit, so I'm pretty happy about that. I said they would win. I said on Scotty Talks last night that there was a chance that they'd win by 10 points. That I took 3.5. I took plus 3.5 or minus 3.5 Nuggets for a plus 110 payout, and that was an easy hit. It was easy money. I was going to say thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Good luck. But back onto the Sixers team and this Joel Embiid situation here. Was it that people didn't want to play with Joel Embiid, or was it some of the other ancillary parts of the Sixers that caused them? And now that maybe Nick Nurse is in charge, that will attract people to want to be here. Is that something? And Joe and Chatter, you're in the comments. Can you? Hopefully, you can hear me okay. My soundboard and mic died as I was playing the intro video, so I rushed a set of headsets in here. I'm not sure what's going on. I hope you all can hear me well. I didn't watch the whole game. I knew the game was over pretty well in the third quarter. Denver was winning that game, no questions asked, in my opinion. But when we're talking about the Sixers, and you're watching the NBA Finals and how they're built, like when I'm watching the Finals right now, I'm doing it not just to watch good basketball. I'm watching to see what these teams have and how the Sixers can get to that point. Because that's the goal. We all want our teams to play for championships in whatever sport. And it keeps bringing me back. We're always talking about what James Harden's going to do, what the Sixers are going to do with Tobias Harris. But this whole team centers around Joel Embiid. And why aren't people fighting to come here to be with one of the best players in the league? It'll work enough for today. Sorry, I'm trying. I literally, as I was playing the intro video, the soundboard died. Don't know what happened. I was already live. Couldn't stop it. Had to go with whatever I could get to work there. So Joel Embiid, I don't know if this is out of line, but maybe Joel Embiid, even though he's a great player, will never be a destination for other NBA players to play with. Joel Embiid is a destination, I'm saying, as a whole. So the question is, what is the reasoning? Is it because players don't want to play with him in his style? Or is it that they don't want to play with him because they don't have faith in him? Maybe part of it is that the NBA does not, or the other NBA stars don't think Joel Embiid can win a title. I'm really trying to figure it out. Or was it because they didn't want to play with Doc Rivers? Is it, we could talk Chris Paul in a minute here, that he's going to be available. And would you like Chris Paul in the Sixers? Every guy that gets cut will be linked to the Sixers. Is it because of Daryl Morey? Daryl Morey's rubbed a lot of people wrong in the NBA. Is that part of the issue? I think there's all these different things that could be going into it. Jokic posting up smaller players makes me more disappointed in Joel even more. Yeah, how many times does Joel Embiid get the ball in a size mismatch, and he can't take control? He can't. I mean, when you're 7'2" and you got that kind of a 4, 5, 6, 7 inch, height differential and size differential over your defender, it shouldn't be hard for you to go up and get a bucket. It shouldn't. And Jokic's proven that. So based off of your comment, Marsha, and I know you were watching Scotty Talks when we started dabbling in this conversation last night, I haven't stopped thinking about it. The question is, are other NBA stars, do they not want to come here? Do they not want to come here and play? Like your reigning MVP, Joel Embiid, PJ Tucker had to get into your face and blow you up in the middle of a playoff game for lack of effort to hype you up. NBA MVPs shouldn't need to be hyped up. They shouldn't need a hype man. They shouldn't need somebody to pump them up and get them ready to play. And do the other NBA stars around the league see that? And if they get traded here, that's one thing. If they're the only big contract they get is here, that's one thing. But no one's demanding, I want to play with Joel Embiid. And it's something like, look, I'm not saying I want to trade Joel Embiid. I'm not saying, get him out of here, he's a bum or whatever. But Joel Embiid, for as great as he is, and how he's the franchise and he's got to be here for the next couple of years at least, maybe him being the top guy, the top dog here in Philly is what's actually hamstringing this team of building a winner, of getting over the top, of everything. You know, Scotty asked me last night on the show, where was my notes from the show last night that I was taking? Will Joel Embiid and the Sixers ever get out of the second round? Ever. I said, well, I'm only 42. I hope I live to at least 80. If I live that long, hopefully the next 38 years, they win an NBA Finals. But that was just like a joke answer. Will this incarnation of the Sixers ever get out of the second round? And this incarnation, I mean the Joel Embiid incarnation. Will they ever get out of the second round? And I don't know the answer to that because I don't know if Joel Embiid has what it takes to be the man. And unfortunately, none of the other players that could be the man when it's necessary over Joel Embiid are asking to come to Philly. Joel also doesn't campaign for free agents to sign here. Yeah, and that's, I think that's another layer of this. Like, well, why doesn't he? Why doesn't Joel Embiid? Why isn't he out there on the free agent market? You know, hey, come play with me. Like, no one's asking to play with Joel. And Joel's not asking anybody to come play here. And that's just another layer of this conversation. That what is it that Joel Embiid's missing to attract players, to hunt players down? Like Joel Embiid was in the conversation with Nick Nurse before he was hired. Like they had to make sure they got on the same page. I don't know. Like I just look at sports in general. People want, like, the thing is, and he's not campaigning for people. I get that. But Jalen Hurts isn't campaigning for people to come to Philly. His work ethic, his reputation, his everything he does. Everybody wants to play in Philly. Everyone wants to come to the Eagles. Free agents are willing to take discounts to come to the Eagles. Why? Because they want to play with Jalen Hurts. Because they want to play for a leader that is going to lay it all on the line to do whatever it's necessary to win. Jalen Hurts doesn't need Jason Kelce psyching him up on the sideline. We got to go. You got to step your game up. Like Joel Embiid needs PJ Tucker. And I think it's interesting. Joel didn't campaign to have Jimmy back here. And we are where we are because of that. Yeah. Well, why? Like, well, that was a couple years ago. Maybe Joel Embiid wasn't as mature and as grown up as he is now. But Joel Embiid's, 29 years old now? Like, he's been in this league a long time. And, you're looking at these NBA Finals, like people are going to want to play with Jokic because he ignores the outside noise and he got his team to the Finals. Everybody wants to play with Jimmy Butler, at least for a small window till he pisses them off. But there just isn't, Trey Turner came here to play with Harper. But this is a great comment here, Kyle, because, Harper campaigns for his guys. He campaigned for JT. He campaigned for Trey Turner. He campaigns for guys. And the front office listens to their star player. But yet, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to campaign for anybody. But yet, Joel, nobody wants to come to him, and he doesn't campaign for anybody. And that's we're basically going to throw the three big stars of this city, Joel Embiid, Jalen Hurts, and Bryce Harper, up on a wall here and talk about why people want to come to play with these guys. And, Bryce Harper campaigned for Turner and JT. But other people do still want to come and play to be a part of Bryce Harper. Where is that with the Sixers? The Sixers don't have that guy on the team, that leader, that guy. I get it. And that's so true. Jalen Hurts also doesn't tweet at opposing players and teams he dominates. No, and that's fair. I get that. Joel Embiid has rubbed people the wrong way with his, I guess you want to call him a troll to an extent. I do think in the last year or so, he stepped back from being, Joel Embiid, the social media troll. He has shown a little bit of maturity, in my opinion, over the last year or so. And I've talked about that before, that he seems like he's matured, that he cares more about winning. But has he rubbed enough people the wrong way with his former personality over the past? that they don't want to come here with him? Or do other players just see like he comes up small? We've talked about James Harden coming up small in the playoffs his entire career. Joel Embiid's always hurt in the playoffs, so we don't really know whether Joel Embiid can come up big in the playoffs or not. But I don't know. Does a star really want to come here and play with Joel Embiid, take a back seat to him, but then have to step up? Because I know, Marshawn, you always say Joel Embiid needs a number 2 that could be a number 1 in crunch time. Does somebody want to come here and be his number 2, but then have to do all the heavy lifting when Joel Embiid comes up small? Like, I think there's really something. Like, I can't believe we're at 20 minutes. I know 2 minutes was me trying to figure out my microphone situation here. Again, I'm still thrown off by this microphone situation. No idea what happened. But anyway, that withstanding, like, I don't know if I didn't think this conversation would get this deep, and I didn't know it would spend 20 minutes on it, and we could spend the whole show talking about this. It feel like it's like we're talking about all these different options this offseason. We're talking about James Harden, whether he's torn. Joker get it too. He's just trying to win. If you're the man, your play, everyone knows, don't need to tweet. I get it. But he's gotten better with that, in my opinion, the last year or so. He really has. We talk about, we hear these stories that James Harden is torn. What to do? Go back to Houston, his home where his family and friends are. He's got all his business ventures. That's his place. Or does he want to come back to Philly and try to win a title? And if that's true, you should never be torn about going to a losing situation or staying in a winning situation. But maybe part of it is Joel Embiid. James Harden's like, do I sacrifice money to maybe win a title with Joel Embiid, or go home? And the odds are 20-1 to win a title in Philly, and they're 200-1. But it's not like the odds in Philly are 5-1. We already saw it. As of now, the Sixers are the 7th best odds to win next year's finals. It's not like they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams next year. Maybe the torn part of James Harden isn't staying in Philly or going home. It's, does he want to give up the money to play with Joel when Joel Embiid's not the guy that's going to help him get that title? James Harden knows he's not at the level anymore where he can win the title. Does he want to really do it with Joel Embiid, or does he just want to take the money at this point? And I'm still off on that idea and that concept, but I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. Jalen is an extreme side of the pendulum. Joel has pissed off enough people, and he continues to do so after every post-game presser where he doesn't show up. Not that I want Dame here, but he was, someone like Dame Lillard would be pissed. Now, on the flip side, someone like Jimmy Butler would be the one doing the post-game press conferences, not Joel Embiid. Jalen Hurts, lets his actions on the field speak for himself. Joel Embiid, how many times does Jalen Hurts come up small? Very few. But when he does, at least he takes the credit for when the team comes up small. So the game I saw of Embiid, he seemed locked in, which is good for a secondary player. Yeah, he just is not the leader. He can't be the leader. If Harden is torn between being competitive and Houston, where he does real community work, is this guy you really want back? Exactly, and I get that. And this was originally where I was going to lead off the show with, talking this conversation. Do you really want a guy that's torn about whether he wants to win or be home? I get the community work joke. It is what it is. But I'm sure James Harden does do good for the community. James Harden off the court gets a bad rap because he likes strip clubs and strippers, and he loves partying with 22-year-old rappers and throwing money around. I get that. And honestly, it really doesn't bother me as much other people, except for when it's happening during the season. When you're leaving your team in the playoffs to go to Vegas for a day off, that bothers me. But the rest of the James Harden off the court personality doesn't bother me. We got to see a lot in the NBA playoffs with his interaction with that young man that got shot. I think he's better than it. But I was going to spend the show talking about, do you really want a player that's torn, whether to come here or not? But I wonder if this Joel Embiid thought process that I'm bringing up here has anything to do with it. And I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to this. I don't even know if it's If I'm even like, I could be totally way off base. And there's a lot of people watching on Twitter too. If you're watching on Twitter, love to hear your thoughts. Head over to the YouTube page of Philadelphia Sports Network or the Facebook page, and that's where I can get your comments in. I greatly appreciate your thoughts. I don't know if I'm off base or not. James Harden is not any guy anymore. He is just a guy. But he's still a guy that averaged a double-double. He led the league in assists, scored over 20 points. And if you let him go, or if he chooses to go, you still got to find a way to replace those numbers, those minutes, those stats there. It just doesn't disappear. Harden paid off enough tuition in Houston. You know what, though? Like, that doesn't bother me. As long as it's not interfering with games, who cares what he does? Last offseason, on his birthday, he's partying on that boat, with the suitcase full of money. Thought it was funny. It's a little extreme. Not my taste. But whatever. The problem is when it interferes in season, then I have a problem with it. I think your GM pigeonholes your team. You don't have options. We don't have options. And this is the big thing. And we can bring up Chris Paul into this situation. And look, Chris Paul is old. He's a future Hall of Famer. Phoenix Suns are releasing him. You lose James Harden. You need a ball handler. Chris Paul is still a viable option. He doesn't play a lot. He gets hurt. I think he played like 50-some games this year. I know he only played like 60 last year. He's not out there all the time. He is nowhere near Hall of Fame Chris Paul. But what if Chris Paul, and here you go, free Maxey. Please let James walk. I'm not sure how we don't get cap relief if he walks, but give the key. We don't get cap relief if he walks. And that is the problem. And that makes trading Tobias Harris even more important. But you lose James Harden, you free Maxey to be the leading scorer on this team. And Marshawn, I know you were watching the show last night. And I said, can Tyrese Maxey be a 25 to 27 point per game scorer? And if he can, you can replace some of that James Harden offense with more Tyrese Maxey offense. You go get a guy like Chris Paul to be your de facto floor general. There's a Chris Paul, Tyrese Maxey backcourt. It's still going to be slower. It's going to be slower. The defense isn't going to be great. Chris Paul's 38 years old. But does that free up Maxey more? I don't know. More I watch the playoffs, I don't think Embiid has what it takes physically and mentally to win a championship. Now, let me rephrase your question, Kane, and ask you another question. You can drop it in the comments. You say he doesn't have what it takes physically and mentally to win a championship, period, at all, or as the guy? Because I think Joel Embiid, and I talked about this last night, if he scaled back a little bit, do you have a better chance of winning an NBA title if Joel Embiid is averaging 23, 24 points a game, focused on rebounds and defenses, instead of focused on winning the MVP, if Joel Embiid focuses on winning the Defensive Player of the Year award, instead being the best defender in the league, which he is capable of doing, and just isn't taking all those shots, does that also make him fresher for the playoffs? So, I think Joel Embiid can win a championship, but maybe not as the guy. And the problem is he is the guy. And is that what has hamstrung us over the years of players wanting to force their way to Philly? If anything, people have forced their way out of Philly. Jimmy Butler forced. I know him and Jimmy Butler are best friends. But he forced his way out. Claims it was Brett Brown, Ben Simmons, whatever. Ben Simmons didn't want to play here. Ben Simmons was soft serve ice cream, sitting on a hot day in the car. But he forced his way out of here. A lot of people have left Philly and not said, I want to stay here. It concerns me. Harden to Phoenix, imagine him and KD teammates again. We never got to see what they could really do as teammates. It's a bad look if he flaunts money. Why? Like, he's got the money. He's young-ish in the world of life. In the grand scheme of life, he's young. He's not married. It's not like he's cheating on his women or anything like that. He's having a good time. It doesn't bother me at all. You know what? Let's find out if he can. We are never going to know until – yeah, exactly. I'm sure you're talking about Maxey. Can he do it? And I think Tyrese Maxey will get the keys because, again, the pause year is what's going to happen. I really, truly, firmly believe the pause year is what is happening. And they're just going to let Harden walk, and they'll find a way to trade Tobias, and they'll reset in 2024. Embiid needs to focus on taking what the game gives him, like the Joker, as long as the Sixers win. Yeah, not worried. Well, now he's got his MVP. Maybe he won't be as focused on the MVP, and he'll be focused on just winning a title. Joel reminds me of a prime Dwight in terms of the attitude and moping around. Yeah, maybe. Dwight Howard didn't have the arsenal offensively that Joel Embiid has. Definitely didn't have the arsenal and the moves and stuff like that. But defensively and stuff like that, maybe. What tax rate? I don't know. The tax rate is what it is. When asked to be traded, that was supposed to be the pause year. And then we traded for Harden. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I don't know what to think of this Sixers team right now. I don't know what to think. And look, the NBA Finals aren't even over. There's only 3 games into the NBA Finals, which means the next season, we've got the entire summer where you're going to be talking about this. And here we are on June 8th, 2023. We're how many weeks out from us getting knocked out of the playoffs? And I still have no clue how to quantify and wrap my head around where the Sixers team is. Like, I don't want to say the process was a failure, because I know the process, and I firmly believe the process wasn't about winning an NBA title. The process was acquiring assets and stars to give you the best chance at winning a title. And they did that. They've had stars here. They've drafted stars here. But was the end result of a successful process a failure? Did they make more wrong moves than we realize? Yeah, letting Jimmy Butler walk was a mistake. Yeah, trading away Mikal Bridges on draft night was a mistake. But was there any Joel Embiid missteps in this situation? And that's what I don't know. You work hard. Players don't need to be throwing. Come on. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. It doesn't bother me whatsoever when he is partying it up and having a good time, as long as it's not affecting his play on the court. All I know for sure is that I don't want Bam here around. Yeah, exactly. I think Scotty last night reminded me that that's probably not a good idea. But nobody's demanding to come here. If he demands to go there, or Jimmy Butler demands him to go there, then that just proves that we have no say in the game, and that the NBA players control the league and the teams, not the actual teams or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know what the exact percentage is in PA. I think it's like 20%, something like that. I haven't seen a paycheck in 15 years, so I don't know. That's just being a business owner. I don't know. This whole thing has got my mind in a knot. All the things that were brought up last night when I was talking with Scotty that I wanted to dive into. John Morant. Some of his trade proposals for Tobias Harris. We haven't even talked about this week yet. Paul Reed and McDaniels working out. McDaniels still wearing his Sixers gear. Even though he's not technically a Sixer. All great things. Although I will say, the video of Paul Reed working out and him doing a step back 3, I give him credit for trying and working on his game. I get him. I get that. That was one ugly. Whoever's controlling his social media and doing video recording and saying, this is the one you want to put up on your social media and let the world see. That was one ugly step back fadeaway 3 from Paul Reed. Can I say that? I know people think it's cool and he's working on his 3-point shot and whatnot. And let's make sure we're liking this video on YouTube, guys. We got 7 likes on the video. We've had between 10 and 15 people watching. Let's make sure we're smashing that like button, please. Likes equal time. Paul Reed, man, I love the guy. He is not going to be a Sixer next year. If he is with the Philadelphia 76ers next year, I will be shocked. Why? And I think it's pretty obvious. He wants an opportunity to shine. He wants an opportunity. He thinks he's capable of starting in the NBA, and he very well on a right team in the right situation will flourish elsewhere. The Sixers, he's a restricted free agent. We can match any contract. The Sixers can't afford more than a couple $1 million for a backup center. You've seen the rotation of backup centers here in Philly for Joel Embiid's whole entire time. Paul Reed's not going to accept a 3-year, $9 million contract. There is a team. I mean, think about this. The Spurs gave Charles Bassey, who had less experience than Paul Reed, a 3-year, I think it was like $8 or $9 million, 3 years, 21, 3 years, $24 million contract. The Sixers can't match that. And Paul Reed's done more. He's going to get more than that. Paul Reed's going to get a 3-year, $33 million contract, 4-year, $40 million contract. Sixers won't be able to match that. So Paul Reed is good as gone, in my opinion. And I think that we have to come to agreement and terms on that. Sixers organization never got and beat his Kobe. Exactly. They fumbled over too many draft picks and too many bad moves throughout the process. And B can't be the number one option. See, and Kate, it's a great post, great comment, great opinions here. The thing was, and I think the Embiid never got his Kobe goes with it. And Kate Marshawn, who's in the comments, says this all the time. Joel Embiid needs a number 2 that could become the number 1. Kobe had Shaq. Shaq was the number 1. He was the alpha male on that team. But when crunch time came, Kobe was. And I think that really is what Joel needs. But see, the thing is, like, Kobe and Shaq were put together there. You need to find someone you can put with Joel because none of the stars are saying, I want to play with Joel. You have a lot of players throughout the NBA always say, I want to play with this guy. Yo, we're best friends. Let's force our way together. Nobody ever does that with the Sixers and Joel Embiid. And I don't know if it's because of Joel Embiid or because of the rest of the Sixers situation, whether it was Doc Rivers being here. Do people not want to play for Doc Rivers? Too many wasted years. Oh, I know. And look, I'm the first to admit, Kane, I should say I am because I'm so glad he's gone. I was so high on Ben Simmons. I was so wrong on Ben Simmons. As right as I was on other people, as right as I was on Jalen Hurts, I was that wrong on Ben Simmons. I thought Ben Simmons, I said Ben Simmons' ceiling was higher than Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid's ceiling was always to be one of the best centers in NBA history. But I said Ben Simmons had the potential, if he figured out his shot, to become one of the best players ever in the NBA. I had never seen that physical athleticism from a 6'10 guy. He could play defense. He could drive. He could dish. He could rebound. He was going to create a new type of basketball player, that point forward. A 6'10 point guard. I loved it. I was so high on him. And I just wouldn't get off of that for so long. And finally, I realized that a year or two ago it was time. But, man, I was wrong on him. It's 3 years, $9 million Florida. It's Pennsylvania's 3 years, $6 million. Gotcha. So we're talking taxes now on here. Literally, he balances out. How? Balances out Howie. Who balances out Howie? Jalen Hurts balances out Howie. Look, I just don't know. And I'm going back to these things like everyone always says the mistakes were the Jimmy Butler mistake, the Markelle Fultz mistake, the Mikal Bridges. Was the biggest mistake of the process actually none of those, holding on to Ben Simmons too long? Because we could have gotten rid of Ben Simmons before that James Harden trade. We could have gotten rid of him in the offseason before that season. We could have traded him at the trade deadline the year before. Did we hold on to Ben Simmons too long? Sure. But when should we have given up? And if we would have given up on Ben Simmons a half a year or a year sooner, we could have maybe gotten more for Ben Simmons. We might have gotten different pieces. We wouldn't be stuck in this James Harden debacle right now. What's up, George? But George, and this is an interesting thing, and I know you're not a basketball guy. You're an Eagles guy. But I think the theory of what I'm talking about here, about how Jalen Hurts, people gravitate to Jalen Hurts, want to play here with Jalen Hurts. But yet, nobody wants to play. Joel Embiid is on that level, that upper echelon star level. And it's not like he brings in the free agent. Bryce Harper lobbies for people to come to Philly. Joel Embiid doesn't. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to lobby. Everyone just sees what he does. And yes, there's a huge difference between Daryl Morey and Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman at least has learned from his mistakes. Daryl Morey made a mistake of going all in on James Harden in Houston. And then like that comes to Philly and just spends his first year and a half plotting and planning how he can get James Harden back to Philly. And he doesn't learn from mistakes. He doesn't learn to adjust with the times. Howie Roseman does. And I think that is part of it. And when I say people don't want to come to Philly, they don't want to play with Joel Embiid, how much of it's Daryl Morey? Like, we can talk Chris Paul all we want. Should he come here? Would he be a good fit here or not? Chris Paul won't come to Philly because Daryl Morey is the GM in this team. And him and Daryl Morey are not very keen of each other. Why? Because Daryl Morey told Chris Paul, I won't trade you. And then he goes and trades you to Oklahoma City. Like literally 2 seconds later. And I think just another layer of this whole Joel Embiid conversation comes into play. That it might not be all of Joel Embiid. It might be some of the ancillary issues around this team. I can't say I've ever heard a sports guy admit a mistake. I always admit my mistakes. George knows this. I've admitted my mistakes on Howie Roseman tenfold because I was so wrong on how. I think about 3 years ago I was saying fire Howie Roseman. I think Embiid's post-game comments about his teammates is a good reason. And some people have brought that up already. There's a very good reason or good opinion there that is why. That his immaturity has hurt attracting free agents and people to want to be here. You never hear people say it. And not even just stars, like even the outside, the bench players, nobody's saying, I want to come here. And I think that's an issue. I'm not all sold on Maxey. He gives me, or Amori. Okay. So I thought that said Maxey. I was like, oh my God, how can you not be sold on Tyrese Maxey yet? Daryl Morey, Chip Kelly vibes. That's interesting. Because maybe if Chip Kelly would have done the deal, if you remember the hashtag do the deal, all in for Marcus Mariota, which thank God it didn't come to fruition. We were going to trade so much away for that. If he would have brought in Marcus Mariota, I would get the conversation because then you would have Morey does everything to get James Harden everywhere he goes. Chip Kelly wants Marcus Mariota everywhere. But yeah, he definitely has an aura and a vibe of arrogance, Daryl Morey, where he just, if you go back and watch his end of season press conference after he fired Doc Rivers, and he just had this aura of, I'm smarter than all you guys, and I don't care what you think. Sometimes a guy like Chip Kelly paves the way for a great team. Chip Kelly, and look, I didn't know Chip Kelly was going to come up in the conversation today. But it's kind of funny because I have a very weird opinion of Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly years were not bad as we think they were. They weren't great, but hell, he made the playoffs in his first year. He missed the playoffs in his second year, but he still won 10 games. And the third year was a complete disaster. I still think if Chip Kelly never gets player personnel decisions, and Howie Roseman, the GM back then, was much worse than Howie Roseman, the GM now. But if Howie Roseman keeps the decision-making choices then, the whole Chip Kelly era might have played out differently. Once Chip Kelly said, I want to bring in DeMika Murray or whoever else, who else was in that offseason that he brought in here when he was making decisions? I mean, the whole course of history might be rewritten. We might never have a Super Bowl. We might have multiple Super Bowls. Who knows? But I think Chip Kelly gets a lot of flack for being a bad coach. He wasn't a bad coach. He was just a bad GM of the team, I guess, if you want to say that. The homies still hate Kiko Alonso. Oh, Kiko Alonso was god-awful. Who traded LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso? Why? Why? One of the worst things ever. Chip brought Stoutland in, argument done and busted. Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, Chip Kelly's not as bad as people think. People have a very ugly taste of the Chip Kelly era here in Philly. And I'm not sure why. He wasn't great. So by no means am I saying and standing up for Chip Kelly. But we've done much worse in the last 30, 40 years. My 30, 40 years of being an Eagles fan. Much worse than Chip Kelly. On the flip side, he did make some mistakes as well. But his failures did pave the way for the Doug Peterson era, for the Carson Wentz era to be formed. If Chip Kelly makes that bad decision for Marcus Mariota, we never get Carson Wentz. If we never get Carson Wentz, we never win a Super Bowl. So many things that domino effect. If Stoutland isn't brought in, who knows where our offensive line is at this point? How many great names we've developed over the years. I mean, Lane Johnson was brought in 2013. That was during the Chip Kelly era. Stoutland shaped him. Stoutland shaped Kelsey. Stoutland obviously, shaped Mailata. There's so many things he's done. Embiid post game said chumps everywhere. My shoulders sore from carrying all the. Yeah, well, he didn't actually say that, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, he traded LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso, and he cut Deshaun Jackson because of gang ties. He made many missteps, Chip Kelly. I get it. And I am not defending Chip Kelly. How did we get on a Chip Kelly conversation here? We're talking Sixers, not Chip Kelly. How did this happen? Like, I don't even know. I got all these notes written down for shows. I love you guys. Everybody in the comment section, I never know what conversation. Like, I start the conversation, and it goes this way, this way, this way, this way. Who knows? I don't know. Yes, he cut Deshaun Jackson. Chip Kelly made a lot of mistakes. What is up, Eric? Welcome to the show this morning, my man. We're all over the place. We're talking Joel Embiid, but, now we're talking Chip Kelly because God only knows. This is why I always say this show is about you guys. It's where your opinion matters, except for Chatter when he brings up the Buffalo Bills, because I don't know anything about the Buffalo Bills. The legend of Kiko started in Buffalo, actually college, when he got so drunk he went into a random house and slept on their couch. Side story, I've had that happen before to me. I wasn't the drunk one, but I remember I was at a friend's bachelor party. We were somewhere down the Jersey Shore. I forget. We rented a house. There was like 30 of us guys staying in one little house that had 2 bedrooms, and I'm sleeping on a couch. And I wake up the next morning. I look over. I'm like, who's that guy? I nudge the guy on the floor. I'm like, yo, do you know who that guy is? He's like, I don't know. Someone else is like, do you know who that guy is? We wake this guy up. He's like, oh, shit, I fell asleep in the wrong house. And he gets up and walks out. Young, stupid Phil. Partying. I can't do that kind of partying anymore. Thank God none of my friends are left to get married. I don't have any more bachelor parties to go on because I don't think I can handle a bachelor party at this point. I don't know how we got off the Joel Embiid topic here and on the Chip Kelly, but I think all these topics are relatable to Joel Embiid's reputation and everything we've talked about thus far and everything we've talked about all season so far for this Sixers team. It's all about Joel Embiid's reputation to me. And whether that truly is what holds this team back. Me and you are going out in the town. Dude, I if you're paying, drop that $500 in the super chat. I want to say something. Yesterday, somebody said something in the comments yesterday about dropping 500 in the super chat thing. Look, I don't even really know much about what that all means. I know you can throw tips on YouTube shows. I would never ask for you guys to do that. All I ask for is you guys to like this show, share it out, tell everybody to tune in, find me on Twitter, share out my content. The more people that watch this show, that is what matters to me. The more people that comment, the ability to maybe get paid from my boss is a little bit more. I go to a 2-hour show more frequently. That's what's important to me. Being able to sell an ad before or after the show, or like an ad logo on the screen. That is more important to me than you guys dropping your hard-earned money into the super chats. Your opinions will get put up on. I watch shows where only the people that drop tips get their comments put up on the screen. You never have to worry about that. You never do. Now, yes, when I have $500 orders, I got to sign off and I got to get to work. But, I just want to put that out there. I thought that was really hilarious when people put it out there. I would never expect anybody to even drop $2 in the super chat. Because that's not what I am. I don't want that. I don't want this show to be about that. Your comments will go up no matter what you do. Embiid wants the depth to be used. Our media are assholes. If you remember when Harden and Maxey went down, we used depth and ball movement. And he was happy. Yeah, I mean, you remember Shake Milton, Eric? What did Shake Milton do? When he got what was it, like 4 games he got the opportunity to start? And he was putting up 20 points a game. There was no – it was more – I think the ball movement, though, also happens more when Embiid isn't on the court. And it goes to show with the teams that are in the NBA Finals right now that you don't need 3 stars to win in the NBA. You need depth. You need role pieces. You need guys to step up when guys go down. Phil's inside the club's name, Harden, slapping people outside. Look, I get that Harden situation, that was a bad look. Him leaving the Sixers in the playoffs on his day off to go partying. And that bothered me. Him slapping people outside bothered me. But when he's doing it in the offseason, I could care less. I don't care what they do, how they spend their money. Harden be like you, Phil. Ease up. They got feelings. I got feelings. Hard feelings. What do you know about hard feelings? You ever have a man die in your arms? If you know what that quote's from, you're really cool to me. Embiid needs to get into better shape and work his condition. I feel like we've been talking about this, Kane, for how many years has he been part of the Sixers now? Like, I'm tired of this. He shouldn't have to work on it. He should just be conditioned. And yes, he gets hurt. He gets injured. And being a 7'2", 285-pound man is not easy to play the style of basketball that he does. That's why I want him to dial it back in the regular season a little bit more. So not that he's just in better shape for the playoffs, that he doesn't risk getting hurt as much. I don't need him flopping and flailing all over. That was you, Eric. You said you need a $500 order, so I dropped the super chat saying stay. Dude, I would never ask anybody to do that, man. I wouldn't. I appreciate it. I thought that was hilarious and that was cool. I have had some people, drop a few bucks here and there on Twitter to me. I don't ask for it. I don't. I would never beg. I've seen so many shows where so many people only put the comments up of those that are doing that, and that's unnecessary, unacceptable. That's not what the purpose of this is. I would rather, we're at 10 likes now. If we were getting 50 likes a show, if I had a couple hundred people tuning in live, man, I'd be able to sell an ad or two, on the screen, ad space, and that's where I can make my money doing this. And then I can do more with you guys, more shows and what's not. Here's a tip. Don't eat yellow snow. Why? I love lemon flavored snow. Isn't that what it is? Lemon flavor? Milton put up maxi numbers. Yeah, he did for like 3 or 4 games. Look, I'm not saying Shake Milton's the answer. He's not a good player, a bad player, anything like that. Shake Milton is what he is, a role player. And Shake Milton could have a role. Like, I could see Shake Milton on the Miami Heat. Some games playing, some games not. Him in a Struss or a Vincent or a Caleb Martin role where when his number's called, he'll put up the thing. But he also wouldn't complain about not getting a role some games. Shake Milton could be a viable person in the right culture, the right system, the right team. In a Joel Embiid centric with James Harden and Maxey, that's not it. I'd be curious to see what Shake Milton would do on another team, and Shake Milton will probably be on another team next year. More the media pressure in Philly. I think the media gets a bad rap for to an extent in Philly. You absolutely need a deeper team. And the problem, but also a positive thing. There's two aspects of this. The Sixers are going to lose some of their depth. They're going to lose Paul Reed. They're going to lose Shake Milton. They're going to lose some guys. But they're going to end up with a bunch of undrafted free agents and guys from the G League team. On a positive end, at least Nick Nurse has proven that he can get max value out of these guys. He can tap untapped potential out of these guys. That's what Nick Nurse is known for. Scotty, I'm really spending a lot of time this morning, welcome to the show, talking about this, why Joel Embiid isn't an attraction, why people don't want to come here to play with him, why they're not forcing their hand. You ever served on a forward line? I don't even know what that means. I keep arguing that English is Embiid's second language. He don't know how to articulate like the rest of us. He never trashed. That's a very fair point. That's interesting. That maybe there is a language barrier issue there a little bit, and he doesn't look. I formulate thoughts in my head all the time, and they don't always come out the way I want them to come out. So maybe that's part of it. Yeah, I don't know what yours is. Mine was a Seinfeld quote. Have you ever had a man die in your arms? What do you know about hard feelings? Or whatever it was. It was Mr. Bookman, the library cop. His name's actually Mr. Bookman. One of the best side characters ever in Seinfeld. Shake could get run elsewhere. That's why he will leave. And that's why Paul Reed will leave too. Because they're going to go to situations. You always want players that want to win a championship. But certain players need to go elsewhere to get opportunities that might not be on championship teams so that they can prove their worth and then get the bigger payday and then worry about the championship. Shake Milton is one of those guys. Shake Milton's going to go somewhere where he's promised starter or 25 minutes a game off the bench. That's what he wants, and he deserves that chance. I would like you to address him as Phillies, Phil. I think he earned it. But you're also right, he can't articulate himself as he'd like to. And I maybe there is something to that. Maybe there is. Maybe he will reconsider under Nick Nurse, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe Shake stays under Nick Nurse. We keep saying McDaniels will stay, and we'll see more out of, D'Anthony Melton, and maybe we'll see more out of Springer. Maybe we see that with Nick Nurse here, but maybe someone like Shake Milton, maybe, Scotty, you proposed some trades last night on your show where D'Anthony Melton goes in some of these trade packages. Maybe Shake Milton is that guy that stays here. Maybe Nick Nurse says, you could be my main guard off the bench. We'll get you 15 to 20 minutes a game. If James Harden walks, you're going to need ball handlers. Again, just like Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton isn't the best ball handler. He could do it, but he's not the best. So I don't know. Maybe Shake Milton does decide to stay. And I have no problem with it. I mean, Shake Milton, to an extent, is a veteran, honestly, at this point. He's seen a lot. Embiid is definitely a troll. And to be fair, Ben wasn't his teammate when he sent the clown meme. That's fair enough. But Embiid has improved on the trolling. He's not as much of a troll as he used to be. But I don't want to play with somebody who's going to shit on me when things go sideways. And I get that. I get that. So I don't know. But again, this is all bringing it back. Is this part of the problem with Joel Embiid and attracting and building the right team? Yeah, see, I don't know. This is the one. Like, I am literally, I love Paul Reed. I've turned the corner on Paul Reed. Paul Reed can start in the NBA, in my opinion. Paul Reed is going to get paid starter. There is literally, in my mind, I'm 99.9% sure that Paul Reed is gone because Paul Reed is going to get an opportunity to start. He's going to get a 3 or 4 year contract north of $10 million a year, which $10 million sounds like a lot, but in today's NBA, a $10 million contract a year, that's nothing. That's bad money. That's weak money. What's the mid-level exception now? Like 15 and a half or 16? So I don't think there's anything Nick Nurse can do to convince Paul Reed to stay. Because, again, Eric, like I said at the beginning of the show, that video that Paul Reed circulating of him hitting a step-back three, that was not a pretty step-back three. Like, I don't want Paul Reed being my stretch four and starting. Because I've seen some people say bring Paul Reed back, start him with Embiid in that four role, let them play together. I'm not ready for that. And that shot of Paul Reed's, everybody's hyping it up. Dude, that was some ugly shooting from Paul Reed. I know he made it. But if I was his PR team, that would not have been what I chose to post. To be fair, I wouldn't want to have to pass to the post every possession if I was a guard. The difference with Jokic is he obviously gets his teammates involved. I will say, though, Joel Embiid has gotten better at passing. It's not an instant turnover when he's double-teamed in the post. So it's improved, but there's a different level between Jokic and Joel Embiid in that sense. I mean, you watched last night's game. I mean, what he does, the offense runs through him, but a different way than Joel Embiid. Like, if you put Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. with Joel Embiid, they're not as good as they are. Like, so is part of people not wanting to play with Joel Embiid also the factor, we've laid down a bunch of things, that Joel Embiid doesn't elevate any of his teammates. Jalen Hurts elevates his teammates. Bryce Harper elevates his teammates. Joel Embiid doesn't elevate his teammates. Jokic elevates. Is Jamal Murray not becoming the breakout star that he is if he's with Embiid? I think that's another fair question to bring up in this Joel Embiid debate. I've seen a few good men. It's been a long time. I don't have a VCR anymore. So I wouldn't say. So I really think you can't handle the truth. Yeah, I know that quote. I just like Seinfeld and comedy quotes more than anything else. Like this Joel Embiid thing. Like, I don't know. And, I didn't know how this conversation was going to go. I didn't know we were going to bring up Chip Kelly. I didn't know my microphone and soundboard was going to die. Today's a lot of unknowns. Unknown things happening. But Joel makes his teammates better on defense. Let me let that marinate. Does he make the team better on defense, though? His teammates better? He is the best defender on the team. He makes our defense better being out there, but does he make his teammates better on defense? They could take more chances on defense because they know that he's there. But remember, we talked about it last night, Scotty. Like, wouldn't it be better for this team if Joel Embiid decided to just try to win the Defensive Player of the Year award and protect himself? Like, if his teammates can trust him to be there and guard that rim at all times, would that make us a better team? Seinfeld is hilarious. The fact that Seinfeld hasn't been canceled in the woke world, it blows my mind because there's so many offensive things said in Seinfeld, yet it still runs all the time, and I love it. I'm here for as much Joel Seinfeld reruns, and I could quote so much from that show. It's one of the. It's not just the greatest comedy of all time. It's one of the best TV shows of all time. It really is. Has one of the worst endings of all time as well. If I was Embiid, I probably would have Draymond Green bend soft ass. Well, I talked about that last night. I mean, Scotty brought up bringing Jordan Poole in here. Look, Draymond Green, what he did to Jordan Poole, totally unacceptable. I do not accept punching people and fighting with your teammates. Like, that just said, I mean, if Joel Embiid, Draymond Green's Ben, that team falls apart even quicker. Like, look, I mean, even Steve Kerr, I mean, I said it the second it happened. The second Draymond Green wasn't suspended, fired, kicked off the team, when Jordan Poole got that big extension as a, hey, we're sorry that this happened, but we're not gonna penalize Draymond Green for this. That team, I said it right then, that the Golden State Warriors were gonna fall apart. And Steve Kerr even said it after the season that maybe I think he used the words the preseason issues, or I forget what he said. He didn't say the exact incident, but he hinted at that incident being why this team didn't have the connection that it had in past and the success it had in past. If be like Joker, Phil, go with what the show gives you. That's what I do here. Like, I start the show. Who knows? Like, tomorrow's supposed to be all football Friday. I got a list of football things that I've wanted to talk about. Again, we'll have to start early. We'll probably start around 8:10, 8:15 tomorrow because there's no way all my football notes will get out in an hour. But it's Friday, so I got to be at work. Unless you drop a $500 tip in the super chat, whatever. I have no problem going where the show goes. Like, it's all football Friday, but we talk other things. We'll see what happens. I just don't know. And what I'm kind of thinking of as we get to the last 10 minutes of the show today, all these things we've joked around and we're not doing it. We're not going to trade Joel Embiid, but this whole show kind of hints at the factor that maybe you do have to consider sooner rather than later moving on from Joel Embiid. If he can't be the guy, if he doesn't attract free agents, if he's not the leader he's supposed to be, if you're never going to get out of the second round with him being your guy, like, how will you ever pair or find a perfect star, his Kobe to Shaq? How are you ever going to find and get that person here if nobody wants to play with him? So if nobody wants to play with him, why do we keep building around him? Why do we keep tweaking what's around him? Sometimes he's got to, what's the line from, Zombieland? It's time to nut up or shut up. When is Joel going to do that? And if he's not, why are we still talking about it? Like, why are we still, worried about Joel? Like, I don't even, like, at this point, I want to continue with Joel, but I don't want to continue with worrying about his feelings and his, what makes him happy. Like, I don't. Like, I wouldn't want to bring Jimmy Butler in here because I don't think that would work. Like, I don't know. I'm not suggesting trading Joel Embiid, but we've just spent an hour and 4 minutes so far. Well, 4 of those minutes me trying to figure out why my mic stopped working and plugging in my backup mic here. So the other hour of the show talking about the problems with Joel Embiid. But yet, we're not ever going to talk about should we trade or move on from Joel Embiid. Would it be the best thing for this franchise? Big picture, not next year, but big picture. If Joel Embiid just upped and said, I want out, get me to Miami, get me to wherever, get me to New York, get me to wherever, I want out. Would that be the best thing for this franchise? I don't know. Judd's saying I think we should. I don't know. I mean, he's 29. I don't know when you make that decision, but it's something that's got to be talked about. Keep Embiid and get a leader. We're not trading Maxey. Maxey is the future of this team. Get a leader, but what leader? Like Chris Paul, could he be the leader of this team? I don't know. It probably would have increased Ben's range by 15 feet. You're right. The fighting team in team fighting, I hate it. I hate in team controversy. The fact that video even got leaked, it's just I don't like in team fighting. We saw the Eagles get fractured already, in the past with Alshon Jeffrey and the Jacina Anderson leak and all that. Like, we don't need fractured teams. We don't want teams that are together, that play together, that want to win together. We want that. Look, I've seen it suggested before. Would the Spurs do that? The Spurs just tanked for Wemby. And I'm glad we're just calling him Wemby because I can't say his full name. It's not going to happen. But, when my man Mr. Crockpot suggested Joel Embiid to OKC for Chet Holmgren and 7 first-round picks. You get Chet Holmgren, Maxey. You've got 7 picks over the next 3 years to rebuild this team. Some draft picks, some young players, and then some draft picks to trade for stars. I'm not saying that's what I would do. And I'm not. I'm going to give it another year. But somebody earlier in the show in the comments said, and I forget who said it, we waited and hung on to Ben Simmons too long. We tried the Ben Simmons experiment too long. Are we holding on to Joel Embiid too long? Are we trying to tweak the Joel Embiid experiment too much? He's either got it or he doesn't got it. And yeah, we went through the process, and we won't ever go through the process again. But I know we want to see the end result of the process in the title. But sometimes it's okay to cut your losses. And again, I'm only saying, I didn't expect to say or bring up in this show me thinking that Joel Embiid moving on at some point in the near future is the answer. But everything we've just talked about for the last hour plus suggests that maybe we should. I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know Embiid personally enough to tell you if he can mature. But he's almost 30 years old now. At some point, he's been in the league, 7 years now? If you don't mature, if you could say, if you wanted to say he's not, but say you said Tyrese Maxey was immature and he's got to mature. Tyrese Maxey's 22. He's been a starter in the NBA for 2 years. Joel Embiid's been an all-star for how many years? I don't know how you say he's got to mature anymore. If you haven't matured by 30 years old as an NBA player, you're not going to mature. Use Embiid for young star and assets-wise values at ties. I mean, it's a fair opinion to have. I'm not ready to do it, but I wouldn't freak out if we did. Is that a fair answer, Judd? I'm not. But it's okay. If Embiid goes to OKC and we not get an Alexander, I'm going off. Look, I'm just going off what the suggestion was from Mr. Crockpot, Edge of Philly Sports. A good guy. I've done shows with him before. There were actually other pieces with Chet, other players with Chet Holmgren. She had to make the money work. But I know Chet Holmgren was the most important name. SGA was not part of the deal. Giddey was not part of the deal. Dort was not part of the deal. It was Chet, 2 other players, and 7 first-round picks, basically. That solution. How many firsts for Embiid? Well, again, and I'll say it again. I'm not trading Joel Embiid. Not. But remember, Rudy Gobert, who's nowhere near the level of Joel Embiid, got 5 first-round picks from Minnesota. So that's the thing. Keep seeing Howie references. The secret behind the Eagles' success over the last 2 decades has been knowing when to let go of star players whilst the whole league sees. And I think, George, it's a great comparison. And I really think that's true. He does not mind. A GM doesn't have to be the fan's best friend. The GM has to make the best decisions for the future, the current and future of the team. And the Joel Embiid part of it, again, it's hard to comprehend trading Joel Embiid. And again, I didn't know this is where we were going to go today. But we ended up here. And everything we've talked about kind of hints at, well, maybe it is time to at least consider and have that conversation. If we've said earlier in the show we waited too long on Ben Simmons, well, why are we doing it too long on Joel Embiid? Again, a pause year is taking a step back to take 2 forward. Develop Maxey a little bit more. I don't know. 30-year-old boomer. Yeah, that's another word I don't use. Good point, George. Exactly. I think George is always the voice of reason. Always, 100%. Sometimes players don't have it. Embiid doesn't have the heart for it. Have to hope Maxey has the heart, or in other words, that dog in him. I get it. You need somebody with that dog in them. And again, Joel needs the number 2 that has the number 1 in him when it's crunch time. And when your top player doesn't have that in him, isn't that a problem? Have I just convinced myself we should trade Joel Embiid? How many rings can Embiid win in Philly? Like, exactly. Like, one? Are we going to struggle for the next 3 or 4 years and hope and maybe win one? Or do we just move on now and try to rebuild and refocus this team in a different direction? SGA would be perfect beside Massey. Same with, I mean, Oklahoma City has developed and brought in some young stars over the last few years. You got to give it to them. They've done the process without a cool marketing name, but it is what it is. Hornets have picked 2. Give them Embiid and see how many more picks. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know it's a deep draft. That's what I've been told. I'll stop watching the Sixers if they mess with Embiid or start doing their stupid trades. And I think that's fair. There would be a massive uproar. And look, Josh Harris would never sign off on it. Joel Embiid would have to ask out because Joel Embiid is Josh Harris's meal ticket. He's the one that makes him the money. So they're not trading him. And I'm not saying I want to trade him. I know we've kind of brought that conversation to the table, but it is what it is. If we get back and pair Halliburton with Maxey, oh my God. We had that opportunity, didn't we? We could have gotten Halliburton and Buddy Hield. You suggested trading Tobias for Buddy Hield last night. You could have had Halliburton and Hield with Maxey and Joel Embiid right now. That would have been interesting. I'm tired. I got a long day. I gotta get back to work here soon. You gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Absolutely. Wise words from GM Kenny Rogers. Exactly. Franchise players need to net you a young star and a haul. If Tatum was offered, Celtics would want a starting lineup in return. Yeah. I mean, I think you could get a haul. I really do. If you did decide to trade Joel Embiid, you could get a haul. You really could. You really could. Leadership isn't about calling teammates out on social media. It's about leading by example. If you have to rely on a player to word bash others to keep them under control. And George, and I know you're not a Sixers fan, you're not a basketball fan. I don't know if you've heard us talk about it on this show, but there was a game in the playoffs where Joel Embiid, the leader, the best player on the Sixers, was moping and soaking. And one of the side guys, PJ Tucker, got caught on camera in Joel Embiid yelling, saying, F this, come on, get your shit together, blah, blah, blah. Like having to fire him up when a role player has to go to your supposed best player and leader and fire them up in the middle of a Game 6 closeout game when you can win when you can advance to the championship round or the next round of the playoffs. That says all you need to know about that player, doesn't it? Like you shouldn't have to do that. And that still bothers me. I take Scott Henderson, but Brandon Miller is probably a better fit for the Sixers. See, I don't know my college basketball players. I know I've read that it's a deep draft this year. I know there's a lot of good young talent coming out in this draft. I don't know. I know Wemby's the best player in the draft. I've heard Henderson's name. I've heard Miller's name. I don't know their games much. And honestly, since the Sixers don't have a first-round pick, I'm not even worried about the draft because realistically speaking, we're not going to be involved in it. But anyway, I think we'll wrap this show up. We only got 12 likes on the video. There's 16 people watching right now. If you haven't hit the like button, make sure you smash that like button. Share this out. Shout it from the rooftops. Tell everybody to watch this show. Again, shout out to everybody that comes in the comments and talks it up. Tomorrow's All Football Friday. We're going to get back to all football talk tomorrow. That is what it's going to be. It's going to be Eagles. I got some things I want to talk about gambling in the NFL. Damar Hamlin back at practice. Zach Ertz, an idea I have on bringing him back. Like, I got lots of football ideas here. I could do another 2 hours segment. We haven't touched on John Morant coming to Philly. If that would be something you would do. I've got so many ideas on my notepad. I got to transfer some of these notes over to next week's notes because, we haven't talked about Zach LaVine. I had so many basketball notes this week that I didn't get to. I want Dylan Brooks too. I think we discussed that yesterday. I think I'm ready to make that, I make that a reality. No, don't give me $500. I don't want $500 from any of you. But, I mean, my wife said that would be great because she just put new tires. Do you know how much tires cost these days? My wife needed new tires. She has a Tahoe. It cost me $900 to put 4 tires on her Tahoe. $900 freaking dollars. And she don't got fancy tires or anything like that. $900 freaking dollars. God, what the hell? Yeah, this week, man, broke as shit. I booked my anniversary vacation for September and had to put $900 worth of tires on my wife's car. Jeez. And that was the cheapest I could find from the cash place across the street run by a bunch of Spanish guys out of a garage. Scotty, we talked on this. This is something that's going to stay in the conversation for a few days here on this show. Tires are crazy. Like literally, like I just bought a Jeep a year and a half ago, and I still got, I mean, they're still new. I only got 12,000 miles on my Jeep. I don't even want to know what my Jeep tires are going to cost me when that comes around. 400. Well, they're probably more expensive, but there's this little garage on somebody's house. It's illegal. It's cash only. Spanish guys, they get tires, and they're new tires, but they only do cash. And you can't get a receipt either or anything like that from this place. And they don't speak English. So $900 is probably because all that money's right in their pockets. $500 for Phil. Make that a t-shirt. Yeah, there you go. Again, I got a t-shirt site. You can purchase a shirt. I got a shirt that says Training the AM. I've got an Aim Higher shirt. I've got a shirt that says Support Local Podcast. Dude, I got logos, everything, man. So you can support me that way. But tax doesn't matter, huh, Phil? No, until it matters. Ja Morant, I love it. Inflation kills. So does this hazard. Dude, everybody, take care of your throat. My throat is so scratchy. I've been battling a cold. This throat today is not because of that. It's because of the weather, the smoke in the air. It's going to get worse before it gets better, man. Brutal. Trust me, I take a risk on so would I, man. Absolutely would. So there's so many notes that I got to carry over to next week's show. It's like I could do this week could have been a bunch of 2-hour shows. It really could have. But that's why I need you to like the video, share it out, tell people to tune in. The more people watching. This week, I average between 600 and 800 views a week on YouTube. I've had a couple weeks cross the 1,000 mark in the last couple months here. But this week, haven't even had a show hit 100 views. Got to share this out. You got to tell everybody to tune in. You got to get people watching live. I think we maxed out at 18 people watching live today. Got to tell everybody to tune in, guys. That's the best way to support me. But we got lots on the agenda. We'll continue tomorrow. 8:10, 8:15. I'll get started tomorrow. We'll talk all football tomorrow for sure. But I got to get rolling here for Philadelphia Sports Network. Thank you all for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe, follow, retweet. Shout it from the rooftops, Trending the AM, where your opinions actually matter. Again, for Philadelphia Sports Network, I'm Phil Stiefel. You have a great Thursday. Protect your throat. Protect your breathing. Stay inside if you can. And have a great day, guys.